He had always believed that love was a quiet, steady thing, not the kind of passion that blazes and burns everything down, but the kind that lingers, patient, enduring, like the faint hum of a familiar song you hear only when everything else falls silent. Her name was Elise. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that seemed to fill the empty corners of the room without making a sound too loud. He remembered the first time they met, a rainy evening on the corner of a nearly deserted street, umbrellas shading strangers, the smell of wet pavement and coffee in the air. He had offered her his umbrella, and she had smiled in a way that made him feel he had known her for a lifetime. For months, their lives intertwined effortlessly. Simple rituals became sacred. Morning texts, sharing playlists of songs that reminded them of each other, long walks in the park while the city slept. Every day, he felt a quiet joy, the kind that doesn't demand attention but fills your chest until you almost forget to breathe. He trusted her completely, not blindly, but deeply. He would have walked through fire for her, believing that the fire itself could never harm them if they were together. He didn't notice the subtle shifts at first, the small delays in her replies, the gentle avoidance of certain topics, the way she sometimes seemed distant, staring past him as though searching for something he couldn't see. He told himself it was nothing. She's busy. She's tired. I'm imagining things. And yet, a whisper of doubt began to echo in the back of his mind. Soft at first, then growing louder with each passing day. One rainy evening, he walked to their favorite cafe, hoping to surprise her. He imagined her smile, the warm light in her eyes, the quiet hum of conversation that had become their soundtrack. But when he arrived, the world seemed different. She wasn't alone. And the sight of her, laughing with someone else, shattered something inside him that he hadn't known was fragile. He didn't confront her. He didn't speak. He simply turned and walked away, the rain soaking through his coat, each drop a reminder that the life he had trusted so fully was gone. Days passed, but the world seemed frozen around him. He went through the motions, work, meals, errands, yet inside, everything felt hollow. The laughter and warmth they had shared with Elise echoed in his mind, now twisted into a haunting memory that refused to fade. At night, he would sit by the window, listening to the rain tapping softly against the glass, imagining that each drop carried a fragment of what he had lost. It was in those quiet moments that the truth hit him. It wasn't just a fleeting mistake or misunderstanding. She had chosen someone else, and with that choice, the life he had believed in, the life they had promised each other in soft whispers and shared glances, was gone. He found himself replaying every conversation, every smile, every gesture. He searched for clues he might have missed, signs that could have warned him. But the harder he searched, the more he realized that some things are invisible until it's too late. And the hardest part was knowing that nothing he could have done would have changed the outcome. Friends tried to reach him. They suggested distractions, outings, laughter, anything to pull him out of the darkness. He nodded politely, but the void inside him swallowed every attempt at cheer. Words felt empty, like the echoes of a song he once loved, but could no longer hear. Even familiar places became unbearable. The cafe they frequented, once a haven of comfort and warmth, now smelled of absence and regret. The streets where they had walked together in autumn, now slick with rain, seemed to mock him with every step. Each memory was a small, sharp ache, a reminder that love could be fragile, and trust even more so. But amidst the emptiness, A strange clarity began to emerge. He realized that while he had lost her, he hadn't lost himself entirely. The pain, as excruciating as it was, had revealed a part of him he hadn't known existed, a resilience that came from facing the truth, no matter how bitter. One evening, as the rain fell heavier than usual, he took out his notebook. For the first time in weeks, he began to write. Not letters to her, not pleas or accusations, just words to make sense of the chaos in his heart. And with each sentence, the weight lifted slightly. He was discovering that stories, even painful ones, could heal. He didn't know how or when, but he felt the tiniest flicker of hope. Maybe, if he shared his experience, the loss, the betrayal, the heartbreak, with others, he could transform his suffering into something meaningful. Maybe, by speaking his truth, he could begin to rebuild not what he had lost, but himself. Weeks passed. The rain continued, steady and soft, as if the world itself was urging him to pause, to reflect. He had stopped expecting closure from her. He no longer hoped for an apology, for a reason, for any explanation that could soothe the ache. He realized that some truths are simply unbearable, yet undeniable. And yet, within the pain, a quiet voice emerged. Not loud, not demanding, but persistent. Tell your story. At first, he ignored it, fearing vulnerability, fearing judgment. But the voice returned, gentle but insistent. He thought about others, strangers, friends, anyone who might sit alone in their room and feel the same hollow ache he had felt. Maybe, he thought, sharing could help them. Maybe it could help him. So he began. Sitting by the window, the rain tracing streaks down the glass, he spoke aloud into his recording device. His voice wavered, broke, but carried honesty. "This is my story," he said, "of love, of trust, and of betrayal. I believed in something pure, and it was taken away. And I know that many of you might have felt this too." He recounted the small joys, the way she laughed, the walks, the songs, the quiet evenings filled with conversation. He recounted the shifts, the moments when distance crept in, and the ache of realizing that he was no longer enough. He spoke of that rainy afternoon, the sight that shattered his world, and the nights afterwards when silence and memory were the only companions. But he did not linger on blame. He spoke instead of the emptiness, the reflection, the struggle to understand, and ultimately, the beginning of healing. "I cannot undo what happened," he admitted. "I cannot make her see me again, but I can speak the truth of what I felt. And maybe through that, we, the ones who have loved and lost, can find some solace." Hours passed as he spoke, unbroken by interruptions. The rain outside a quiet witness to his words. And when he finished, a surprising calm settled over him. It wasn't the absence of pain, but a recognition that speaking, truly speaking, had lightened the load, if only slightly. He realized that this story, his story, could be a gift not only to himself, but to anyone who had felt lost in love. Pain, he discovered, could be shared, transformed from isolation into connection, and even in the shadow of betrayal, there could be understanding, growth, and the first flicker of hope. After that long night of speaking, something shifted. He didn't feel healed, not completely, but he felt lighter, as if the weight of unspoken words had finally begun to lift. The rain outside had slowed to a gentle drizzle, the kind that leaves the world feeling soft and reflective. He realized that his pain, while sharp and unrelenting, had a purpose. It reminded him of his capacity to feel deeply, to care fully, to love without hesitation. The betrayal had not erased who he was. It had only tested him, forced him to confront the fragility of trust and the strength required to endure its loss. He decided to share his story with the world, not as a cautionary tale to blame anyone, but as a testament to those who had walked similar paths. You are not alone, he thought. Others have loved, lost, and survived, and so can you. He recorded the final segment, his voice steady now and calm, carrying the weight of experience but also a quiet hope. This is my story,